Yes, I think we are. Well, it is 4:30 on February 26th, 2026. We'll call the New Ulm Planning Commission meeting to order. I believe we have a quorum, so let's go right to the minutes. Has everybody read the December 18, 2025 minutes? And are there any comments or additions or questions?
I have just a small clarification on page 4, paragraph 4, the second sentence that need to pay $3,000 for the sewer and $3,000 for water and for the water services, just to clarify that.
All right. Any other clarifications or comments? No, then do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
And a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No. Okay, that passes. Let's move on then to the public hearing section tonight. We have one case with two hearings involved. The first is the 3.1. That is a variance request from Royal Lakes Recycling. John, are you going to present the staff report?
Yes. Hello, everyone. John Nisley, planner with the City of New Ulm. So this is a public hearing on a variance request for Royal Oaks Recycling. I would note that there are actually asking for two variances for the same site. So when we get all the way down to the motions on this agenda item, we'll need to make two motions. The two variances are: one, to request the required minimum parcel area for the recycling facility from 4 acres to 3.69 acres, and then two, to reduce the required minimum setback from a residentially zoned area from 500 feet to 325 feet. The applicant is Ed Mamu on behalf of Royal Oaks Recycling. The property owner is Eric Bodie on behalf of SPRD LLC. The legal description of the property is Lot 1, Block 1, Front Street Industrial Park, 2nd Edition. The street address is 810 North Front Street. The property is generally located east of North Front Street, north of State Highway 14 or 7th North Street, and between North Front Street and the recreational trail. So if you're on the Highway 14 bridge going north out of town, looking down to the north, you'd see the big white building that we're talking about. Description of the variance. A recycling facility has specific standards under Section 9.2, use-specific standards of the zoning ordinance. The variances being requested are from the use-specific standards section of 9.2 and not from the I-2 General Industrial Standards, which are Section 6.3. So if you think back, a lot of the variances that we've discussed here at the Planning Commission, at least over the past couple of years, have been things like a reduced setback from a property line or types of things like that we find in that specific zoning district. In our zoning ordinance, we also have use-specific standards for certain uses within the city, some of which we wanted to have extra criteria that they needed to follow if they're going to be located within the city limits. A recycling facility is one of those. A deadline for a decision on this application is April 6th, 2026. The comprehensive plan land use designation is industrial. Surrounding land uses in the comprehensive plan include industrial to the north, industrial parks and open space to the east. To the south, we have industrial, and then to the west, we have industrial, and beyond that, beyond the railroad tracks, low-density residential. The zoning designation for the property is I-2, the General Industrial District. Surrounding zoning to the north is I-2. To the east is I-1 and A-OS, that's agricultural open space. To the south, we have I-2. To the west, we have I-2 and RT2. That's the traditional neighborhood single and two-family residence district. Currently, The building is being used as a warehouse building and is also occupied by another industrial tenant located on the east side of the building, along with other accessory uses. Current area land uses include DNA Trucking, Schaefer Crane and Contracting to the north. To the east, we have ACT Dust Collectors, the recreational trail in the Minnesota River floodplain. To the south, we have a storage building, State Highway 14, and then more storage. To the west, we have New Ulm Truck and Trailer, the railroad tracks, and then we have single-family residences beyond the railroad tracks. Notice was provided to all property owners within 350 feet of the subject property and then published in the Journal on February 14th of this year. We did receive one phone call from an adjacent property owner requesting that we address any issues with the recyclable materials leaving the property and asked about any issues that we might see with this type of use, such as noise or odor. I will get into that as we go through the staff report a little bit more and the standards that apply. We also have audience members here as well who may want to speak on this matter. Chapter 13 of Appendix A, that's the rules and definitions chapter of the zoning ordinance, defines a recycling center as a facility whose primary activity is where recyclable materials are collected, stored, flattened, crushed, or bundled prior to the shipment to others who will use those materials to manufacture new products. Hazardous waste and special waste, as defined by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, shall not be received at a recycling center. Section 9.2 of Appendix A, these are the use-specific standards in the zoning ordinance, provide specific performance standards for a recycling center, and they are as follows. Number one, the facility shall be located on a parcel with an area of at least 4 acres. And then number two, the facility shall be located at least 500 feet from any residential zoning district, school, or daycare. The third one is, except for a freestanding office, no part of the facility shall be located within 15 feet of any property line or the minimum buffer yard setbacks required in section 4.1G, whichever requires a greater setback. 4 is that all recycling activities in storage areas shall be effectively screened from view by walls, fences, or buildings. Such screening shall be designed and installed to ensure that no part of the recycling activities or stored materials can be seen from adjacent rights-of-way or lots. All outdoor storage areas shall be surrounded by a solid fence or wall that is at least 8 feet high, located no less than 5 feet from any public right-of-way, and located no less than 5 feet from any adjacent property. 5 is that the facility shall at all times comply with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency permitting for the site and shall promptly comply with any order of mitigation or correction issued by the MPCA when an inconsistency or violation is found. The city may require additional improvements to protect the city's stormwater management system resulting from the operation of the facility, including but not limited to additional stormwater treatment, reporting, and notifications as appropriate. 6, there shall be no collection or storage of biodegradable waste as defined by the MPCA at the facility. Storage of hazardous waste shall at all times be found in compliance with these requirements and the permitting of the MPCA as applicable to the site and the material in question. 7, space shall be provided to park each commercial vehicle operated by the facility. 8, the facility shall be administered by on-site personnel during the hours the facility is open. 9, the site shall be maintained free of fluids, odors, litter, rubbish, and any other non-recyclable materials. The site shall be cleaned of debris on a daily basis and shall be secured from an unauthorized entry and removal of materials when attendants are not present. 10, noise levels shall be in accordance with section 9.2B. 11, signage shall include the name and phone number of the facility operator and indicate any materials not being accepted by the facility. 12, access to the facility shall be from an arterial or collector street. And then 13, no dust, fumes, smoke, vibration, or odor above ambient levels shall be detectable on abutting properties. On staff's review of the proposed use, the business will meet all of the use-specific standards for a recycling facility with the exception of standard 1 and 2, which is the parcel size and then the distance from residential district. Definition of an I-2 general industrial district, of which this proposed use is to be located. The purpose of the I-2 zoning district is to provide locations for a wide variety of more intense manufacturing and industrial land uses, which, because of the nature of the product or character of the activity, should be located in areas that will minimize their impact on neighboring properties and less intense residential areas, businesses, commercial, and industrial land uses. So, a site description and use. So this is what they're actually proposing. There is an existing structure on the property that is approximately 52,888 square feet in size with approximate dimensions of 150 feet wide by 200 feet long. The 20,000 square foot area on the east side of the building, you can see that in attachment 4. Let me see if I can pull it up here for you. Is being used by an existing industrial business. The recycling facility would use the remaining 32,888 square feet that is currently vacant, and that's the part of the building that is directly abutting North Front Street. Shipping and receiving of recyclable materials will take place through the existing loading dock located at the northwest corner of the building. I also pointed that out in attachment 4 here so you can see where that loading dock area is. Recyclable materials will be moved through the covered loading dock and stored in the building until there is enough material to ship via semi-trailer. The site will operate mainly as a transfer facility. There will be no sorting or separating of large amounts of recyclable materials on the site. There may be breaking open of some bulk bales with stored material in the building until enough material is collected to make a larger bale for shipping. So that means that none of the recycling handling will be outside or out in the open parking area. That's all going to be handled internally within the building. So it's going to come in on a truck, backs into the shipping and receiving area, unloaded, hauled into the building. It may be broken apart or bundled together with another bale. When they have enough material on site, they're going to bring it back out through those loading docks, put it on a semi-trailer, and then that goes to its final destination. They are not handling any residential recycling materials at this site. It's largely going to be plastics, cardboard, and paper from commercial customers. So some examples of that would be a lot of times when a commercial customer gets in a shipment, that shipment comes in on a pallet. That pallet is often wrapped with a plastic bale wrap or a plastic wrap. That wrap is pretty much virgin material, and these guys will be the ones collecting it from that commercial customer, bundling it together, and ultimately baling it and shipping it out. That's just one example.
Is there any, so I do understand that the public won't have direct access to the site. They won't be bringing recyclables. None of the customers will either, will they? It will be only truckloads from other sites that are bringing it to this essentially transfer kind of a facility.
It's my understanding that this company goes out with their vehicles, collects the materials, and brings them back to the facility.
Okay.
The applicant provided the following information on the proposed use. The business will take place entirely within the building envelope, other than trucks parked outside in the outdoor parking area, which they have on site. We do not anticipate that there will be any traffic exceeding that generated by any other I-2 use. The hours of operation will generally be from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. The project will be comprised of transloading, shipping and receiving, and baling of paper and plastic. Materials will be from pre-consumer and post-industrial retail and printed packaging. We are not a typical recycling operation and do not handle residential recycling materials. I would note in staff's research on this site, this would be their furthest north and west site that's located in the United States. Most of their sites are further to the east, Michigan, Illinois, and then even further to the east. This would be a hub to serve not only our local area, but North, South Dakota, northern Minnesota, potentially Wisconsin and Iowa. Unique circumstances. The proposed facility is almost exclusively being operated indoors and functions more as a transfer facility than what we think of as a typical recycling facility. The recycling facility is only taking commercial recycling clients and not recyclables from residents. There is a physical barrier between the residential zoning district to the east and the proposed recycling facility, and this barrier includes an elevated railroad bed, trees, and another I-2 industrial business. Staff did evaluate this entirely with regards to the variance criteria, and that can be found in attachment 6, the findings of facts. So in order to recommend approval of the variance request, the commission will need to adopt findings of facts and recommendations using the review criteria as provided on the findings of facts forms in attachment 6. Planning Commission and City Council must make an affirmative finding on all variance criteria in order to grant the variance request. The applicant has the burden of proof to show that all the criteria above has been satisfied. We did have 6 attachments with this item. First was the application by Royal Oaks Recycling and their responses to the variance criteria. They also provided a drawn-out or a sketch of a site map where they're going to be storing material, where their staging area is, and their baler, and then their shipping and receiving area. Attachment 2 is a site location map. And I also put on here the 300-foot radius around the building so you can see who all would have received letters regarding this application. And then on this too, you can also see clearly the Minnesota River floodplain to the east, and residential areas to the west, elevated railroad track, and then US Highway 14. Subject property is located in the I-2 zoning district, as you can see on attachment 3, with surrounding zoning mainly being industrial, but then that Minnesota River floodplain to the east, which I would note that is undevelopable. Nothing could ever be built there. Attachment 4 is a site map showing the location of the rec trail, the loading docks, portion to be occupied by Royal Oaks Recycling, and then the other industrial user within that building. Took a number of pictures. This is facing the shipping and receiving area, facing south from their parking lot. This is a little further north on Front Street, facing southeast. This is a photo from North Front Street, facing northeast to the back of the building. And then attachment 6 are staff's responses to the findings of facts. If recommended for approval, staff would recommend 3 conditions. 1, that the applicant shall pay the cost to record the variances with the Brown County Recorder's Office. 2, that any recyclable materials are collected on site, are responsible to remain on site prior to the shipment. Materials that accidentally blow off the site will be collected by Royal Oaks Recycling and brought back to the site. And then condition number 3 we'd recommend would be that the applicant shall comply with section 9.2 of Appendix A of the City Code regarding use-specific standards for the recycling facility. We have 2 potential motions here. One is, the first one is for a variance for the lot area, And then the second one is the setback variance, and both of them have a motion to recommend approval or denial. And that would conclude the staff report.
Before we open to the floor for the hearing, are there any questions that we have of staff? Well, we'll ask questions, then we'll have the hearing, public comments, and then we'll discuss the item afterwards. So do we have any questions of staff?
Sure. How did we get the 4 acres determined? I mean, for the history for it, you know, to say that's adequate, or now the request is to go smaller than 4 acres, but do you have any history or background on it?
Well, really, I think what we were looking at here is knowing how we have a couple recycling facilities that are either in town or adjacent to town. And I think experience has shown the city that oftentimes those are a certain size when they start and they get bigger. And not only that, there's a lot of moving parts that happen with some of those recycling facilities. They may need a bigger area to move equipment around and so on and so forth. But that being said, the difference, I believe, or staff believes, in this situation is they're not actually handling consumer recyclables. They're not separating on site. They don't have really a drop floor or anything like that. Riverview Sanitation on the north end of New Ulm, it's actually in Brown County, but right adjacent to New Ulm. When they first started out, they were actually doing separation at the site. So they would drop a load of commingled recyclables on the floor, and that would get sorted on site to plastics, paper, cardboard, you name it. And that involved a lot of machinery outside, moving things around, and also a lot of noise within the building with conveyors and things like that.
And is that how the 500-foot separation came about as well, based upon sort of a standard recycling center?
Yeah.
Okay. Does this need an MPCA permit?
To be able to collect commercial recyclables, everybody needs
Okay.
a
All right.
recycling or a MPCA permit.
Okay. Any other questions before we open the public hearing? Okay, we'll open the public hearing. If you've got any comments, please come up and tell us what's on your mind. If you step to the mic, give us your name and your address, then you're on the record, and we'd like to hear what you have to say. Nobody's jumping up.
I had questions. I talked to John ahead.
Okay.
He answered pretty much everything with that presentation now.
Okay. Any other further comments, questions? Yes, could you come, just, we'd love to hear who you are and where you live.
I thought I was going to get out of it. John said I could. Mike Tower. My daughter has a house down on 900 North Valley,
Okay,
and she's got a couple of grandkids down there. So she was concerned with traffic, noise. I had worked at the other recycling center in town here through 3 owners. So I had a pretty good idea what was going on, but this is all pretty much a different ballgame. So
okay.
John did a good presentation. He answered all my questions. So
And she elected you spokesperson.
she had to work till 5, so
Okay,
otherwise she would have been here too.
all right. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Anybody else?
I have a question. John, I'm wondering how this gets enforced. It says here, one of the conditions, if materials that accidentally blow off the site will be collected by Royal Oaks Recycling and brought back to the site. How is that controlled if there's an issue with that?
So if there's an issue with it, we're going to get a phone call on it. Or if staff is driving by and sees that there's a bunch of materials that appear to be these types of recycling materials, we're going to give them a call. And then we'll request that they go out there and pick them up. They shouldn't really have that problem since they're not breaking any of the bales outside of the building, but you never know. Something could happen. Something could, some fluke incident could happen. We just want to ensure that they understand that they're going to be responsible for picking that stuff up. It's not the neighboring property owners. It's sort of already addressed in the use specific standards, but I wanted to be explicit about it in one of the conditions.
If I might add, this is a typical condition whenever we deal with grocery stores or stores that have a lot of cardboard or paper, a lot of times that tends to blow around, and so we make it a standard requirement that they, walk around their building and pick up any debris that is there.
Is there any concern, so say for fire department, or if there's a fire with the flammable,
Yeah, so the building is currently sprinkled, and I believe the building official will be working with them to make sure they have the right sprinkling system in there.
All right. Well, let's close the public hearing part of it, and we'll continue discussion. Are there any other comments? Are we okay with the findings of fact? We've all read them, and we're okay with them.
Yes.
yes.
I do have one thought. I'm perfectly okay with what's being proposed. I think the impact upon the neighborhood is minimal. And as a recycling center, I don't think you can have a cleaner, quieter an operation. But I'm a little more concerned about the future. I know variances and conditional use permits are run with the property. So, there is the outside chance that next time around, someone can pick up on these and use the variance and use permit for their operation. I think basically what that means is when we look at the conditional use permit, I might look at tightening up some conditions. But for the variances specifically, and this use, I think, as Larry pointed out, the setbacks, the separation, the size of the property, I think we're really tuned to look at a standard recycling center, the kind that you are familiar with, and they're a different use really than what we're looking at. So I personally am fine with both variances. I don't have a problem with them. What does everybody else think,
Agreed.
I agree.
folks? Well, I think then that we're at a point where we can entertain a couple of motions.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval with conditions. The variance request for by Royal Oaks Recycling to reduce the required minimum parcel area for a recycling facility from 4 acres to 3.69 acres on the property legally described as Lot 1, Block 1, Front Street Industrial Park, Second Edition.
Thank you. So Joe made a motion on that first variance. Do we have a second on that one?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor of approving that recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Who is not, say no. Okay, that passes unanimously. And then we have the second, the separation variance. Is there a motion for that one?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval with variances, with conditions. The variance request by Royal Oaks Recycling to reduce the required minimum setback from a residentially zoned area from 500 feet to 325 feet for a recycling facility located on the property legally described as Lot 1, Block 1, Front Street Industrial Park, Second Edition.
Thanks, Joe. We got a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No? All right, that's passed unanimously. Let's move on to the second item. It's actually the second request associated with this case, the 810 North Front. This is the conditional use permit for that same recycling center. John, are you presenting it, or David?
I'm going to take this part of it. This is a public hearing. They are requesting a conditional use permit to allow the operation of a recycling business that engages in the transloading, shipping, receiving, and baling of paper and plastic at 810 North Front Street. I would like to thank John for giving the rest of the staff report. If it's all right with the commission, I would like to not repeat what he has.
We would
just
prefer that, I think, right? Okay.
I would like to move to page 4 and the section on unique circumstances. I'm maybe have just a couple more and look different. Number one, the proposed recycling facility is almost exclusively being operated indoors. Two, other than outdoor parking, there should be no evidence of outdoor business activities. Three, many recycling businesses partially operate outdoors. This business does not operate in this manner. Four, the recycling facility is only taking product from commercial recycling clients and not recyclables from residents. Five, there are several physical barriers between the residential zoning district to the west and the proposed recycling facility. These barriers include the railroad bed, trees, and another I-2 industrial business. Six, the business should be similar from an operational and intensity standpoint as one of the previous occupants of the building, that being Shelter Product. And seven, this industrial area of the community has a variety of businesses that involve the use of trucks and generate truck traffic. The proposed business should fit with these land uses. Then I would like to move down to conditions, since the other items are identical to what John provided in his report. The conditions that I have listed are: one, the applicant shall pay the cost to record the conditional use permit with the Brown County Recorder's Office. Two, the applicant shall comply with all of the standards listed in Section 9.2 of Appendix A of the City Code regarding use-specific standards for a recycling facility. Three, there shall be no exterior storage on the property. Four, the operator of the business will remove from the grounds and surrounding properties any debris or garbage associated or generated by business activities taking place on the site. Five, all business activities will take place within the existing building as provided in the application. Six, Royal Oak Recycling shall operate the business as described in the application. And then seven, Royal Oak Recycling and SPRD LLC shall secure approval of variances from the requirements of use-specific standards numbers 1 and 2 for recycling facilities found in Section 9.2, Item H of the zoning ordinance.
Thank you,
That
David.
will conclude the staff report.
I have a clip. Before we open the public hearing, do we have any questions or something to clarify? Or I have just one. Who is SPRD LLC? Are they part of the application package? Are they not? Are they the owner or?
They're the
They are
property
the
owner.
owner.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then maybe one addition to the unique circumstances. I think it's important to point out that not only is there that railroad bed, but it's raised, so it actually works as fabulous natural berming. It's a good separation between the residents and this project. If there are no more questions from us, I'd open the hearing for anybody in the audience who would like to say something, add something. You're here, you've come all the way, you should say something. No, okay, all right. All right, well, you're smiling. I think that's a good thing. We'll close the public hearing then and bring it back to us for discussion. Commissioners, are we okay with all of the findings of fact that staff has given to us?
Yeah.
I'm seeing all positive nods. Okay,
Yep.
good. Do we have any other comments? And I just have one. I'd like to mention that, again, I noted earlier that I think this is a good use for the site, and I think as a recycling facility, you can hardly get cleaner. It seems to be needed and just a benefit. But I am a little concerned that since conditional use permits run with the property, you might have the scenario where the current users decide that they're done, but that use permit still ticks, I don't know what it is, 6 months or a year before it dies after use ends. There's some period, but I kind of want to make a condition or two in here that are just being lifted out of the report and the proposal, so they're not new, but I'd like them as a condition just to make sure we don't have that sneak into the site and put some kind of a recycling facility we don't really want there because it's too close to residents. So I'd like to suggest that, if staff's okay with this, we do a number 8 that simply says, no residential recycling materials are allowed to be accepted on the site. It just keeps the commingled public from bringing stuff on here, and the next user can't sort of sneak it in then, the next recycler, if there is such a thing. And that finally, that this site will not, number 9 then, that this site won't be open to the public for recycling purposes. And I think both of those are part of the proposal, but I think if we include them as conditions, we don't get that accidental, I get to use the conditional use permit just because it's there. With that, does anybody have other comments? Are we okay with my suggestions?
I agree with your suggestions. I think they're good.
All right. I think we're ready then for a motion. This just takes one, doesn't it, John? Just for the conditional use permit, okay. Come on, Joe, you've been on a roll here.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Recommend approval with conditions to include the 2 that were stated, 8 and 9. The application of Ed Mamu on behalf of Royal Oaks Recycling and Eric Bodie on behalf of SPRD LLC for the conditional use permit to allow the operation of recycling facility on the property legally described as Lot 1, Block 1, Front Street Industrial Park, 2nd Edition. This property has a street address of 810 North Front Street.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say yes.
Aye.
And then I said yes. Oh, I'm kidding. No, he listened. Anybody who's not in favor, please say no. All right, it passes unanimously. We're conditioned, aren't we? We say aye. So reports, we come to section 4 here. Do we have any from any council discussion items you want to share, David?
Or some.
Okay.
At the January 6th meeting, they conducted a public hearing on a tax abate, no,
Speak into your mic more.
they were going to conduct a public hearing on a tax abatement program for SLD Properties LLC. That is the company that is constructing the commercial building at the corner of 4th North and Broadway. And at the last minute, that was necessary to pull the item, and it will be back on the agenda at the next meeting. They approved the simple lot division of the property at 1527 South German Street. You may remember the commission spent a couple meetings discussing that item and ordinance changes. They also approved the variance request associated with that property as well. At the January 20th meeting, I thought it was important that you all know that the New Ulm Battery Cannon Shoot 2026 schedule was listed, and I want you all to know, I don't want it to be a surprise, that on July 4th at 5:32 a.m., going to be 13 rounds shot off from the cemetery. So
Are we supposed to then ask why 5:32? There's a reason for that, I suppose.
I assume that's maybe sunrise.
Oh,
So
wake up,
you
New
know,
Ulm.
wear your earplugs or sleep in the basement. Or, also at that meeting, the council approved a redevelopment grant application for EBMD to the Department of Employment and Economic Development. And that would be for the purpose of removal of the mall structure, I believe. And if you want to know who part of EBMD is, in the back of the room.
They're still smiling.
At this same meeting, the mayor gave a report on boards and commissions and suggested changes to them. One of the things that she suggested is that the Safety Commission should be disbanded due to the lack of work or items coming before them. Also recommended a reduction in the number of members of the Sister Cities Commission. I think they're at 11 now. They would go down to 9. And then they would combine the Tree Commission with the Park and Rec Commission. At the February 3rd meeting, there was discussion, or actually approval, of setting a bid date for the construction of the new airport crosswind runway. And the bid date, or the bid opening, is scheduled for Tuesday, March 24th. At that meeting, they also had a discussion and they approved a new video board for the Johnson Park baseball field. So that'll be a change. The cost of the sign is $259,000, so
Big sign.
should have a lot of bells and whistles, I would expect. Then they had a work session at that meeting, and this is going to flow into something else we're going to talk about this afternoon. And that was that they were advised that the National Guard Armory at 205 North Broadway and the field maintenance shop that is owned by the National Guard at 1523 would be made available to the city for $1 for each piece of property. There is significant interest in the field maintenance shop. I think at this time there is some question as to what use could be made of the National Guard Armory. And that would conclude the staff report on that item.
David, does the Armory have significant historical preservation baggage?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Is the city actively looking for people who would like to take that on, or?
I think if the city does not want the facility, that they then would go through the process of advertising its availability.
Okay.
Commissioners, Chris Alton, City Manager. Currently, we're kind of going. We have another week or so before we have to give our final answer to the National Guard if we're going to proceed or not with field maintenance shop in the Armory. They're currently doing an assessment, so we'll know kind of what has to be done in the buildings by the end of this week or sometime early next week, and then we can make that decision. It's kind of up in the air whether or not we'll take the Armory. Council was kind of split on that at the meeting. But as Dave was alluding to, more than likely, if we do take it, is so we do have control of the property and it doesn't potentially fall into, a situation like George's did and the mall prior to its current owner. That way we have it and we can kind of go through that process. And my thinking is we would do just almost a nationwide RFP. throw it out there. Here are the 5 or 6 things we would like to see done on that property, and then we can list in there what we know needs to be done and stuff like that. So that's kind of the plan if we do proceed. But if we don't take it, it goes to the county. If the county doesn't take it, then it goes to open market after that.
All right. So as part of our process, do we look to see if we're inheriting structural issues and?
Yeah,
We do,
that's
okay.
kind of what the what they're doing this week as they go through and see what needs to be done.
Okay.
And I think, as far as I know, and I could be wrong, my understanding is it's just the facade of the building is what is historic. So I mean, I guess literally you can just implode the inside and do whatever you want. But I could be wrong on that. But that's what my limited knowledge on what is historic about that building.
Has the inside been altered since so that it has lost its historicity or
That I don't know.
I don't believe it.
Yeah.
It has.
all right.
I know they've done a couple rounds of abatement on the inside, lead in asbestos, but I don't know if they've done the whole building.
I would also note that since I've been with the city, there's been at least 2 times that they've done restoration work on the building. So they've maintained the building.
Just ghosts of past career and past armories. As long as you're not asking the federal government for a penny on any restoration or any tax breaks, then you could implode the inside. If you want any kind of tax break, then it's going to be interesting. Thank you. I see our building officials not here. Is somebody else going to do a Heritage Preservation Commission?
Yes,
John.
I can. I would let me know that there was one sign that went in front of the HPC, and that was actually for what was formerly the Hearth Insurance Agency on 2nd North here. That is now Scove Broughton, and the sign and everything looked, lettering and everything looked just like the one that was previously approved for the David Hearth Agency. I also would note too that on the historic preservation side, we did meet with McDonald and Mack Consultants along with some of their associates to take a further look at the Herman Monument, and they are coming up with a full-blown plan and cost analysis of what our options are to do with that monument. We'd expect that within the next month or 2, I believe.
Okay. Anything else for reports?
Yeah, just we included in your agenda packet some information about something that is again before the legislature, having to do with actions that are going to generate more housing within communities in the state of Minnesota. I would note that the legislation that's being proposed is statewide. There is some differences based on population. There are 3 different classes of cities that exist, and so the amount of effort that you make is based upon your population. And maybe we'll just go through some of those so that you kind of get an idea of what they're looking at. The Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities has been very active in this area and has been trying their best to minimize any changes that are made. One of the items that they are looking at is something called administrative approvals. which basically means that the planning commission and city council would no longer be involved in issues maybe associated with variances or rezonings or
Any of them? Just
things of that type. And Chris may know a little bit more about that than I do. They had established some residential design standards, where your front door had to be and where windows had to be, and now thankfully that has been removed. They have something about homeowners associations. They were going to mandate that cities could not require that there be homeowners associations. Most cities don't do that. That normally that's a decision of the property owner. The only concern that was expressed is that if the property owner decides not to have a homeowners association, but still has private streets and other private facilities, and at some point in time those facilities need improvement, who does that fall to? Does that fall to the city and the city taxpayer to improve? So there was some concern about coming up with a remedy to that particular item. They also established a minimum lot size of 5,445 square feet, which means that that gets applied in the single family zoned property. So 1/3 of the single family zoned property that you have to have a minimum or a minimum lot area of 5,445 square feet. Now, the city has to have that in their zoning ordinance. The property owner has the option of exceeding what that amount is. So, but think about that's 1/3 of property in the city, and within that area, you can have from 1 to 4 units per lot.
So we already have probably more than 1/3 of our housing, our lots in sort of traditional, don't we?
No. So we did a map just to kind of see and show the legislators where we were at. If we exclude all parks, because those are zoned residential at this point, and we removed all right-of-ways, with our R3, R4, and our new PUDs, we're only at 12%, a little over 12%. So we would have to convert 21% of our R1 up to this new scale. We're looking in some of the legislation to verify. So you look at like the Wake property, the rest of the Keepers property. Those will, since they're currently open space, those automatically have to be zoned on that. So adding that, does that get us, it'll get us closer, but you're adding more space. So there will be a small conversion that will eventually have to do if this legislation passes. That is probably the last remaining piece that I know I am actively trying to get them to change, drop that from 33. I threw out 20, but if they can drop it to 25, that's more manageable, but still not great. But that's kind of the last piece. And I'll let Dave continue because there's one other fun piece to
There's
this.
also, if there's a parcel of property in an existing developed area where you have a vacant lot,
Yep.
automatically that is subject to that requirement. So again, you could have a row of single-family homes, and all of a sudden, if someone so decides, you'd have a quad.
Mhm. Could you explain how the 5,000 square foot comes into play? Is that minimum, maximum? Is this single family 5,000, or is this just,
A lot in the in the R1 can have will have to be a minimum of 5,000 now instead of what's ours currently, like 7 or 8.
Yeah, we were at actually at 9.
Yeah.
But we have a zoning district, which we established in 2022 called R1S, and our minimum lot area was 5,000 square feet. And our dimensions were 50 by 100. And we have had no contractor, no developer, no individual talk to us about wanting to plat that size lot. Absolutely no interest whatsoever. And I think that's fairly common of most greater Minnesota cities. What we're talking about are standards that more or less come out of the metropolitan area and more specifically Minneapolis and St. Paul, I would say. And that's the legislators that are leading this effort
Right.
are out of the metro area.
so what is our is it RT2 or R, is that like 5,000 square feet and you can put 2 units?
We our corner lots, we allow those to be subdivided like we did down at
Yeah.
1527 South German. That's 4,250 square feet, each of those. So our corner lots would all meet that standard.
The 2 that we have left.
Well, there's something to that. I mean, we've really used, or a lot of those have been developed with 2 houses on them.
Mhm.
One other thing that they're encouraging that I don't think has a negative impact is they want to allow apartments in commercial zoning districts. And so again, they were using 33% as the standard for that. They were going to mandate that accessory dwelling units were automatically permitted. They've gotten some pushback on that regarding issues when you allow something like that, especially setbacks, but also having your own services, so there's still some discussion taking place there. They had an interesting one having to do with height, and they legislation read that you within a specified area, the permitted height was whatever the tallest building was in that area. And so immediately someone said, well, what about grain elevators? I mean, is that what you want your...
What have they done with like parking, for example, and where we want to increase the densities in residential areas?
So what they did then is they have something called additional requirements. And the last time I looked at that, New Ulm was supposed to, it's based on population, New Ulm was supposed to have 5 points. They assign points to certain things that you do. And so we had to have 5, and then I looked at something today and it was down to 3. And this is something that's happening. what we sent out in the agenda packet was something we got on Monday, and I got something new yesterday. And today there was an email from the coalition with some more new stuff. So this is something that's just
Very
very fluid, and it's difficult to keep up with. But I'd like to share with you what qualifies for points.
First of
we've
all, how do
already-
points work? I mean, what's the whole,
So there's no more points anymore. They got rid of the word points because we didn't like the word points because while current legislators aren't going to use it as something, someone down the road can be like, okay, what do all the cities have as points, and then start ranking and then potentially using it for grants and LGA and stuff like that. So the legislation has changed. It's just you have to select from the menu. And basically, it's kind of a choose your own adventure, if you will. But when, as David alluded, we had to choose 5. And while there's 9 options, there's really only 6. And so they were basically saying, you get to choose your own adventure minus 1. And so that was one of the other things that we were fighting against. And as David mentioned, it's down to 3, which is still 50% of what they want us to do, which I'll still take because I think currently right now we probably meet 3 at this point.
so if I can reword this, we're mandated to meet 3 specific goals of our choosing out of these 9 or 6 or.
Yeah.
I'll give you
Okay.
some examples here. One of them is, remember some of the things that we talked about previously. Well, the first one is 50% or more of the land zone for single-family housing allows mixed housing as a permitted use. So mixed housing is 1 to 4. So you go from 33% now, all of a sudden you're up to 50. You get a point for that. Excuse me. Then the next option is you go 100%.
That'll go over.
And then there is, with the commercial property and allowing apartments, you go from 33 to 50. Then you can go up to 100. The next one is no more than 1 parking spot per residential unit is required in all multifamily residential developments. So that's where your parking stall comes in. That's
So-
an option that a community would have
Okay.
to meet their required number of, what are we calling that?
Goals. I don't,
Goals? I don't know.
So-
I like the choose your own adventure, but
so that's like only one required on-site parking space for,
Yeah. And then someone points out, okay, what if I've got an apartment with 2.5 bedrooms? You only get 1 parking stall? Where's that other, I'm going to have more than 1 car.
Yep.
Where's that car, So then it's up to the developer to make that accommodation. Their next option was no more parking spaces. So you just leave it up to the developer or the property owner to
yeah, look at
make
Minneapolis and see how well that works.
St. Paul.
I mean, seriously, yeah.
St. Paul's worse.
Then there are certain types of housing projects: workforce housing, multifamily, affordable, senior housing. You can get credits for that. Then they have another standard where you can have 8 residential units in 15% of the land in the city zone for single-family housing.
What?
Yeah, your density has increased, almost doubled from 4 to 8, or 15%. You get a credit for that. Now they have gotten a little bit more imaginative and a little bit nicer in that you can create a housing trust fund. that would count. And we've talked about that before here, about that. You can establish a program which provides upfront subsidy for development of single-family detached homes with an expected purchase price of $500,000. I don't know where that came from. Or provides upfront subsidy for development of duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes at an equivalent rate per residential housing unit, or the city reimburses city fees assessed on development of single-family detached homes, duplexes, triplexes, or quadruplexes. So that's kind of how you can meet these additional requirements.
So are any of the outstate representatives pushing back? Or
So yes, but this will be the third session, so third year that this bill is coming through. So something is going to pass. So this was, I'm going to say it's the amalgamation of 2 years and just different. They had two separate bills. Now they're combined into the single one. The a la carte is basically what they were demanding in the last bill, as nope, you have to do this. So that's their compromise. I'm glad the number came down, but CGMC, I'm on the land use and annexation committee. We're giving all our, Mankato's part of that too. So we're giving our thoughts and everything on that. So every time a new version comes out, I send it to staff. We talk about it and kind of go through the same motions. What are we still pushing for? I will say that the League of Minnesota Cities has pulled themselves from the conversation at this point. They are still in opposition of it. They just want to use their political capital on other stuff because they know something is going to pass. So CGMC, Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, is still at the forefront, ready to fight, putting this in front of everyone, getting us the information so we can contact our legislators and reps and kind of go through that process with them.
do we know where the source of most of this is? Is it East Coast, West Coast? I mean, it certainly didn't start here first.
No. So the purpose of the bill in the author's eyes is just to increase the number of housing units. That's really where this bill is stemming from.
And that means they think that means more affordable. Is that really what we're talking about?
Affordability, affordability isn't a word they're using when they're talking about it. Is
It's just
purely
density.
density. Number of housing units is all the information that I've been kind of presented, and every time they talk about it, it is about density and number of units coming on the market. What they do fail to see, and they acknowledge it, is during a Zoom meeting that we had with our land and annexation committee, we said, well, if this is primarily geared towards the metro, just make it a metro bill. And they absolutely said, nope, we don't want to divide the state between metro and outstate. I'm like, well, you're dividing the state now this way with this one. So this is kind of where we are. We're trying to fight the good fight and at least get it to a more manageable position. But something is going to pass this session.
I would note that in this bill, in no location is there a dollar sign. So there is no money being provided to, assist in the development of housing.
The classic unfunded mandate, right?
Exactly.
Is
You know,
it a
if-
matter of the municipalities up in the cities can't manage their own density, and so they got to go to the state level to get approval? Because it sounds like they're trying to make one bill fit the state, and it makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, and that's kind of the argument that we say one size doesn't fit all, but when you look at, Minneapolis, St. Paul, a lot of those areas are completely built out. And the only way you can go is up and increase density. So this helps them when there's vacated property, when there's, land, blighted land that they want to take, eminent domain or whatever. It gives them the option to build that density versus having a single family home. And then when you look at some of the richer areas in the metro area, that's why they have the minimum lot size in there, because they don't want people having acres, an acre of land where you could have 2, 3, 4 different homes. And that's where some of this is stemming from. And getting rid of design standards and things like that as part of this helps in some of those areas. Some of that is affordability. You don't have to have brick facade and all of this stuff. It lowers the cost a little bit, but not as much as they think it's going to lower it.
I think one of the potential impacts of this legislation is, you're going to see people going out into the townships. Although they tried to introduce something to limit that, the other thing that's going to happen is if you live near the border of with another state, I'm going to move into South Dakota. I don't have to deal with this stuff. And so I can see a loss of population that way.
So have they discussed any of the primary motivators? I mean, is this going to be a carrot program or a stick program? And if it's a stick program, what are the sticks? Are they going to say, okay, Naughty New Ulm, we're not going to give you any more money for your programs? Or do we care? We just say, forget you, we're going our own way then.
I'm sure there will be a stick at some point. They haven't discussed any of that. I know initially when they roll it out, because as it currently stands, we're not going to do anything until 2028. That's kind of when it will kick off, which isn't that far away. And that date might get pushed out as well. But it is going to kind of be a Scout's honor, at least initially, and then as cities don't comply or they see non-compliance, because you're going to have to report, hey, we did these things, and there's going to be minutes and stuff like that. Then they're probably going to come with a stick at that point.
Do you think this is kind of a party? It's divided by party, that this is being pushed more by the Democrats than it is by Republicans, and if that should change, might
I would say,
impact things.
I think initially the bills were, but I think this is kind of the more bipartisan bill, because I think it's one DFL and one GOP is the authors on this one. So this is kind of the compromise, for lack of a better term, and that's why I think, and that's why something absolutely is going to pass this session.
So just praying for the session to end early makes no difference, right?
Yeah.
Okay, forget it.
I should note that both of our representatives, Representative Torkelson, Senator Doms, have opposed the bill.
Okay. When does the session end? Just so we know we can breathe again.
Was it May 15th?
Yeah, May, sometime in May.
All right.
I mean, we'll keep you, as more versions come in, we can present just the updates and changes.
All right. Any more happy news on reports?
We did have one more thing, and this is it's a different item to discuss. We wanted to discuss with you different land uses or land use considerations that could be considered for properties in the B3 zoning district. And this tonight is just an open discussion. There's no decisions being made. It's really just about providing you with information and then you providing us with some feedback. Specifically, the property that we would like to talk about, to use it as an example, let's say, is the Target building. the Target building right now, and as you all know, is largely vacant. There is some warehousing that's taking place in the on the rear of the building. The front currently does not have any retail located in it. And we have had the property owner who just left have a number of different ideas come up for the site, and generally speaking, they're more of a light industrial type of use than they are a commercial use. So what I wanted to show you all tonight are the uses that are permitted in the B3 zoning district, which there are a lot.
Do these bigger monitors here are not working? My glasses don't allow me to see that, but I could see this.
Oh, you can't see this at all?
Well,
On-
I've got no, there's nothing here at all.
Can you see this up
No.
here?
It's,
Our eyes are not good enough to see that, John.
I can't.
I need a different pair of glasses for that.
Okay.
John, I can't see it.
You can't see it either? Okay. I can zoom in.
They can put it on the monitors.
Yeah, if we could get it onto the monitor, it would be fine. They're not, okay,
Okay.
okay.
200%. Can you read that?
Yeah.
Can you read this one?
No, but I'll listen. I got good
Okay.
ears.
There's one down here too.
It's not working either.
Okay, fine, fine. So, uses that are currently allowed there are agriculture sales, community garden. Keep going down, active park facility private, armory, clinic, medical, club, convalescent, monastery, event center, essential services, passive park and open space, public place of assembly is a CUP, public building and use is permitted, public utility.
Don, is this B3 you said?
This is
B as in
B3.
business?
Yep. I'll pull up a map so you have a sense
Okay.
of what's around it.
What a conglomerate mess, huh?
We have public utility structures, schools, and major utilities are all conditional use permits. Ambulance service is a conditional use permit. Auto repair minor. Automotive wash facilities, bar liquor, brew pub, building material sales and storage, business support services. So there are a lot of uses that are permitted in the B3 currently. But I think what the situation that's happening at this site is that it's a larger space. A lot of the retail that has been talking or looking for space in New Ulm isn't looking to date at that site because of its size. That being said, and the Planning Commission reviewed this back in 2022, I believe. The Planning Commission did approve a zoning amendment to allow warehousing, storage, and distribution with a conditional use permit in the B3 zoning district. So they could, and it was specifically, they gave a permit to, conditional use permit to this location. But there've been a number of different business ideas, let's call them, for lack of a better term, that have come forward, but largely they're, again, light industrial in nature and aren't typically allowed in the B3 zoning district, or our zoning ordinance doesn't allow that in the B3 zoning district. So what I wanted to speak with you all on is would you want staff to take a look at some of these other light industrial uses that may not have any or not much of an exterior impact, and bring those uses back to the Planning Commission for discussion as to would we consider these with conditions or permit them in the
Yes.
B3 zoning district?
Yeah.
I would note, though, it's important, I think, to put this into context, because we're talking about one individual property. If we were to talk about if we were to talk about a zoning amendment, that would apply typically across the entire zoning district. So while warehousing and distribution may be great in this location, we wouldn't want necessarily something like that where it's right next to residential across the street. I mean, they could be coming and moving and making noise at all hours of the day with residents right across the street.
Can you blow up exactly where is the target, right?
It's right here. This building. Where the hand is. Can you see? Do you want me to zoom in further, you said? Okay.
Oh, that, perfect, thank you.
Why don't you show where Hy-Vee is?
Hy-Vee is located right here.
Yeah.
This is Junior Pioneer Park, South Park, Shell's Brewery back. This is New Ulm Steel and Recycling. And then it's, our B3 zoning district is largely along our major roadway corridors within the city.
How close is the closest residence to Target?
So 50.
The nearest one is going to be all the way down by Pioneer Park.
Yeah, there's residences right here, here, and then over here.
The difference to me is that there's a distance between, we wouldn't want the type of business you're talking about across from residences, obviously, but with the Target location, there's no close residences.
Well, what uses are just south of Target? I mean, is it possible to just rezone an area, not just a single property? I mean, can we, if we think light industrial works, do you just rezone it light industrial?
Well, no, this is a dental office.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Got
this
an
is
apartment down in that
apartment
area.
here and a residence here. One of the other things too that I think needs to be part of this conversation is the availability of B3 properties in the city. There just are not actually that many, especially on the south end. This is probably the only vacant area, and then on the north end, we're talking about properties next to Aldi, Walmart, along that Highway 14 corridor and West Ridge Road. So I just think that all of this needs to be part of the conversation and the thought process if we want to take a look at different uses that could potentially be allowed in the B3.
So would the former running site be a B3?
Uh,
By Quick Trip,
That's B2.
B2?
Well,
I think, we also are, at least at this time, as John kind of indicated, the demand for commercial property is not what it was in the past. So the amount that we maybe set aside for that purpose, I think, we need to take that into consideration as well. Second thing I would note is that we probably could have the same conversation about the armory. What is the best thing for that building? And if this group had some ideas that they wanted to share, I think you certainly could do that.
Do you think it could be a trend center that everything's moving more west, so, because we had developments, say, with the new tire shop and Aldi, that end, for B3 versus the south end, and, that it might come back as a trend, It just, because it took, I remember when Cashwise was the only building out there 40 years ago, and,
I think the problem we have on the south end is we just don't have a lot of vacant, property, whereas on the north end, we do.
I think at this point, that building's been empty for, 10, 11 years. When you leave a building open for that long, too, they're going to start to have structural problems with it. I think we need to look at doing something different to get it filled. What's the reason it hasn't filled up to this point? Is it those types of businesses trying to go in and they just aren't zoned for it, so they can't get into it?
To some degree, in that same amount of time too, we've also had there's also been interest from large retailers that would have used it. So, it's like, I think the question that we have, or the dilemma that we're dealt with, is do we hold out and stick with only the B3 uses? But considering that was done intentionally, or do we consider different types of lighter industrial uses to try to fill the space?
Considering what was done intentionally, that it was zoned B3.
That it was zoned B3.
If we were to, so I hear a little hesitation to rezone it to something evidently B3 inventory needs to stay what it is, or there's pressure to keep it there. So if we're trying to preserve B3 property, but you want to use I1 uses or light industrial uses, do you just go to a performance standard route? So you don't want to encourage you don't want to encourage assembly or some kind of light manufacturing or light industrial in a storefront. So if you've got a large enough building with enough property to make it work, so we're not losing our B3 property, maybe you just use performance standards. Like the recycling center, you need to have 5 acres or something, or a building of X size, or not a new building, or, if you really want to go that way, we can tailor make something to make that work. I'm sure.
My only hesitation with rezoning was that if we were to rezone it to something like light industrial, we don't have another industrial property or use abutting it. I was
Right.
concerned about
Spot zoning.
So I was thinking if we do take into consideration things like light industrial, maybe you do it through the conditional use permit and performance standards route. So you have a little bit more control on how that could operate in that location specifically.
Right. And that's why I asked about other property, surrounding properties that might be rezoned as well, and it doesn't sound like that's a good route to take.
Is there any potential uses that the owner is saying, hey, these are some things, but I'm restricted because of the current zoning? Like
So-
that might help us be able to, all right, this is what we want to make these variances for that.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. Has he shared anything with you? I mean, is it the parking lot, or is it what the classification is for the zoning, or what is the issue? Has he shared any of that?
It's the zoning because we don't typically allow the industrial uses on that property.
Can we fairly say like St. Peter or Mankato, that they've done something of a nature, so then we can say we've seen this activity, and to utilize buildings?
Well,
it's neighborhood cities, of why, for justification.
so Mankato, if you've been over there recently, they've largely repurposed those buildings into something else. So, Gander Mountain is now a Bongars, which is like a Runnings. They also, right next door, can't remember what that one was previously, but it's a Goodwill and another store. Then there's,
Shopko turned into.
yeah, Shopko.
We've got a hockey
right.
rink and a restaurant and a bar and,
Right.
But
It just
but
takes
really
time.
no industrial uses.
Yeah,
I'm hearing
right,
from you,
correct.
really no industrial
No-
uses.
when you think of Mankato, we're talking about a different market. I mean, they draw from a much larger area than we do, and so they probably are able to absorb or to have more commercial. But they've just gone through the process. How many businesses did they lose that are of a fairly large nature? 2, 3.
Yeah.
And look at the mall at the present time.
Yeah.
I think that making some decisions on taking a look at light industrial uses that you may think would work in some of these areas, and then changing our actual zoning ordinance would provide a lot more clarity for staff to say yes or no on these types of things.
What kind of uses are are associated with that light industrial?
Great question. We don't have a light industrial zoning district, but we have an I-1, which is our, for lack of a better term, light industrial, but that's the industrial that takes place entirely within a building. And then we have, I'm going to pull it up here.
When we redid the zoning ordinance, we did make an attempt to move into the commercial use section what I would consider to be some light industrial businesses. So, that was something that we were already seeing, and we thought, okay, we've got to be able to accommodate this a little bit. And so I think if you look at, the uses in that section, you'll see some of those.
All right.
If we don't currently have a light industrial area, then wouldn't it be appropriate perhaps in that situation to do spots? I know you don't want to do that, but if you did it for that one segment, maybe it would be more appropriate to do light industrial here instead of doing an entire area. Do you know what I mean? If we don't have that currently? If
Sure,
it's in-
I know what you're saying. I think what Dave is trying to say is we've tried to allow those light industrial. We don't have a separate zoning district that's called light industrial, but we have light industrial uses that are allowed in our commercial districts. So light industrial, for instance, Sweet Haven Tonics is a light industrial use that is in the downtown. They're essentially manufacturing products and labeling and all that stuff, doing it on site and then shipping it out. So that's an example of how we've allowed those types of uses to exist in I feel like a creative way in the city already. But I think maybe some of the differences that are with this site in particular is we're probably talking a bigger scale than what we have over there across the street.
I mean, depending on how the use, but for the amount of traffic, it probably wouldn't be any more than when Target was operating. With how many semis need to come to bring goods and how many shoppers and, traffic patterns. If you can say it's relatively going to be, in the same amount of volume, you've got a parking lot that's got, it's got 100 or 200 parking stalls that, at times,
It probably has a couple hundred, and in that area,
busy
that,
shopping season or whatever.
yeah, in that area, that
traffic,
wouldn't
but
matter.
You can justify it and say, the light industrial use, you're not really changing any, it's got similar nature of traffic, and stuff, and, just saying as a justification, it's not really altering anything different, because, if it was a shopping center, those neighboring apartment buildings and or houses that are a block or two away, you're gonna still, if it's so-and-so's got to go to work there and hours, whether maybe it's back then, say Target might have been, I don't know if it was 7 o'clock in the morning to 10 at night, where it's not a 24-hour facility, but
Well, maybe let me ask you this. Would it be a good idea if staff took a look at our industrial uses, put together uses that we feel would be considered light industrial uses that wouldn't have a lot of neighborhood impact, and then bring it back to the planning commission for your consideration, and further to the discussion?
I think that would be a good step. I worry a little bit that if we're going to allow these light industrial uses in the B3, then if it fits there on the Target site, you can make it fit anywhere that's zoned B3, and we just need to be cognizant of that.
Yeah.
And I think you need to look at performance standards.
Yeah, I think, maybe we want to also look at other options that might be available. Maybe there's something else out there that that would work.
is there any other significant or B3 spaces that are available within the community that are sitting empty, or are I-2 industrial that are empty that
No.
other
No.
developers may want, or?
We have one I-2 building currently one larger-ish I-2 building that just went up for sale. Other than that, generally speaking, our industrial properties in New Ulm get swallowed up right away.
You mean commercial,
No, I mean industrial.
building?
Yep.
But we have industrial land.
No, I agree.
I think with that building being empty for 11 years, we need to do something. And having worked across the street from that location for so many years, I don't think it'd be a problem if we turn that to light industrial at all. The problem would be if we extend it beyond it. But in that building, that location right there, I think we need to look at doing something.
And if it complies, like, you know, you would have had X amount of parking stalls for a shopping center and, you know, it's similar nature and, you know, for a business, you know, or whatever, that light industrial, if it's got, you know, potential to bring in employees or something.
Well, Bill, you talked about performance standards.
Mhm.
What types of things were you thinking of?
Well, since you can't really predict what 5 years from now is going to produce for light industrial needs or uses, you don't exactly know how you might impact the people on the other side of a wall. I mean, I'm assuming if you can do it in a B3, any place where there's a building in a B3, you've got multiple use buildings. I think you need to look at everything from noise to parking to generation of whatever. You know, there are byproducts to any light industrial thing. Energy consumption to parking to noise to, I mean, uses have impact. So I just don't want to open the door to, if I'm leasing a space and next door suddenly can become light industrial, I want to be sure that my investment in this property isn't going to be impacted by some unknown thing coming in next door. It's different at Target. That's an isolated big center, but I don't know just sitting here what performance standards those might be, but you know, we can noodle through them.
Could we come up with standards that maybe only apply to one particular property?
So, you know, if you talk with a land use attorney, they're going to say, no, but we've all worked things where you create something that's applicable to everybody else who has those same set of circumstances, and then you're not being unfair. But we all know you end up applying it to one site, but you don't know. Maybe another site shows up that's similar at some time. You're right. You can't, it's like spot zoning. You can't create this body of legislation or ordinances for a specific property owner. But if you're looking at performance standards that could apply to other properties that are similar, then I don't think you're going to run into problems with litigation.
So we could come up with standards for all of our 90,000 square foot buildings that we have in New Ulm.
Now you're catching on. Or properties of a certain size. I mean, you know, we do have larger lots out west, and someday, though the county at the moment and township aren't big on it, over time, annexations occur, and the body of law will apply to newly annexed property if we zone it that way, and it's consistent with our comp plan. So, yeah, I think that can be done, and at the moment, there might only be one property that benefits from that, but if it's part of a bigger analysis, I think we're okay with that.
I'm going to just bring up AI now, these data centers and stuff has become a conversation, you know, would that be considered a light industrial? And then, you know, like in downtown Minneapolis, they're looking at taking a big building to make it AI and data and stuff like that, you know, to utilize big empty buildings.
Well, okay, first of all, I think that's a giant conversation.
Bitcoin mining?
I think that AI, like what they're doing in downtown Minneapolis, is relatively new. There's all kinds of adaptations that have been going on, from large scale, you know, 500,000 square foot buildings that are constantly noising and humming, to something smaller like you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to be real specific when we're talking about things like AI and where it's going, how it's going to be used. There is also a lot of change in how those things are heated and cooled, whether it's water or air exchange, and whether it's recycled water, all kinds of stuff that factor in. We do have some uses sometimes being proposed for sites like this that aren't real, that don't fit neatly into our zoning regulations as far as how we would define what they are. And that's another thing that might factor into a site like this where there's some different creative ideas that we don't have. You know, you can't say, well, yeah, this is a recycling center, or, you know, this is an auto repair shop. So that's another thing I think we're potentially could deal with this type of site. And how to handle that, I don't know, other than to try to fit it within the existing definitions, or you end up creating entirely new definitions.
An interesting thought.
I think as a start, though, if you could assemble into some big boxes things to think about, we won't spin our wheels quite as much as we have something specific to think about and look at, and maybe we find out how other cities have tackled the empty big box, because they are everywhere. So we're not the first to try to deal with that.
It'd be nice to hear from the public as well, you know, of ideas maybe of what they think for the uses of the property, or if they think it should be shopping or retail or in manufacturing, you know, or light industrial.
Be nice to hear from the owner too.
Yeah, he had to run, unfortunately, he had kindergarten roundup, so he had to get going.
Priorities.
Absolutely.
You know, when you mention a business like Sweet Haven Tonics could go in there and be light industrial, I mean, that would be a great type of business to be in there that wouldn't create issues.
Big building, though, they can create lots of
Yes.
stuff in that building.
It is a big building.
We just need to be thoughtful. And to David's point, we don't want to be creating, can I say it this way, a windfall for a property owner at the expense of the community. But I think there's ways for everybody to win. I just don't know what they are.
I think there's ways for us to figure this out, and I think we have an obligation to do so. I mean, that's been an empty spot in the community, and there's something that can go in there that would be for the betterment of the community. Even if that's just paying
Murray
taxes.
has no interest of pursuing the property. I mean, they once came to us 3-4 years ago.
You know, what we hear,
Have we gone out to ask them to say, or needing anything or not, or
they may be storing, warehousing some stuff in there right now. But as far as moving the brewery there, or you know, portions of the brewery there, like they had talked about years ago in front of the city council, that hasn't bore any fruit.
Would that have been light industrial?
Well, what they were proposing at that time was more of that was more of like the public facing side of the brewery, tap room, food. You know, you can see the brew. If you've been to a small brewery, you can see the process in back.
Yeah.
I think they were trying to showcase that a bit.
That would have been
That's-
amazing.
I think it would have been a combination. You know, you would have walked into the building and there would have been all of your public stuff, and then behind a wall, that's where we're warehousing or we're doing other manufacturing types of things. So they probably would have had dual use, or, you know, 3 different types of uses in that space.
Yeah.
Where I struggle with questions like that, which I appreciate, is do we wait for something like that to happen, or to Bobby's point, are we obligated to take to look at some alternatives? You know, that's why I'm asking the planning commission for some feedback on what we should look into.
We may never get it exactly right, but I think it's always better to be proactive than reactive. So we've had 10 years of knowing that it's not working. So I think it's a good idea to look at some options and make it easier for the next people in, even if we don't get it quite right. Cities are always reactive. We never know. We always try to catch up with what's going on in the real world. And our zoning ordinances are always a little bit behind, and that's just standard. It's,
Well, this gives us an opportunity to explore options,
yeah.
take some public input potentially, and you know, and maybe that conversation, just having that, you know, might spark some interest from X, Y, and Z. I don't know.
So if what I'm hearing correctly from you all is that maybe at the next planning commission meeting, again, just for discussion purposes, bring back some, what we have in our zoning ordinance would be considered light industrial uses or other types of uses that may fit that type of building. Maybe some potential options for performance standards just to look at and review.
And maybe see what other communities, if there's
and-
anything
right.
out there that are kind of
Repurposing their buildings.
repurposes,
Yeah.
you know, we're probably not the only community that lost a target and or, you know, and maybe how many are empty yet, or if other communities changed them to light industrial or you know,
Super.
Is there, I saw this yes to homes. Is that something we've already covered, or is that,
Yeah,
that was rolled into, okay, all right. Is that it then? Do we have anything else? Something not on? All right, then we will adjourn the meeting at 6:16.
good discussion.
It was a good discussion.